Westminster just exploded literally 1 minute ago. Keir Starmer's world came crashing down in the most spectacular political meltdown Britain has witnessed in decades. His own MPs have turned against him. A no confidence vote has been triggered. And the reason is so explosive, so utterly devastating, that Starmer completely lost control in front of everyone. He erupted. He screamed. He lashed out at his own party members like a man watching his entire political career disintegrate in real time, because what just came to light is the ultimate betrayal, the one thing that could never be forgiven, the one lie that crosses every red line. Starmer has been secretly working to reverse Brexit. Behind closed doors, while telling the British people he respects their vote, he's been negotiating with Brussels to drag Britain back into the European Union's control. The evidence just dropped. Documents leaked. Meetings exposed, secret agreements revealed, and the fury inside Westminster right now is unlike anything that we've seen before. Labour MPs are in open rebellion, backbenchers are demanding answers, ministers are resigning, the party is tearing itself apart, and Starmer is at the centre of it all, watching his government collapse around him while he rages and panics and desperately tries to hold on to power. This isn't just another political scandal, this is treason against the democratic will of the British people. 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union. They were told their vote mattered. They were promised Brexit would be delivered and respected. And now they discover that the Prime Minister they trusted has been working secretly to undo it all, to surrender British sovereignty back to Brussels, to betray the biggest democratic mandate in British history. The anger is volcanic. The outrage is spreading like wildfire. And MPs from all parties are finally saying enough is enough. Even Labour MPs who've supported Starmer through everything are turning on him now, because this betrayal is too big to ignore, too fundamental to excuse. The no confidence vote has been triggered. The numbers are being counted. And sources inside Westminster are saying Starmer doesn't have the support to survive. His own party is about to remove him. And what you're witnessing right now is a Prime Minister in complete meltdown as he watches everything he worked for destroyed by his own arrogance and deception. The Brexit betrayal has been exposed. The evidence is undeniable and Starmer's time is up. The bombshell dropped at exactly the worst moment for Starmer. He was in the middle of a meeting with senior cabinet ministers trying to manage yet another crisis when the news broke. Leaked documents hitting the press showing secret negotiations between Starmer's government and European Union officials. Negotiations that were never disclosed to Parliament, never mentioned to the British people, never approved by Cabinet. Secret talks about regulatory alignment, about rejoining EU programmes, about accepting European court jurisdiction, about surrendering the independence that Brexit was supposed to deliver. The moment those documents became public, everything changed. MPs phones started exploding with messages from furious constituents. The party WhatsApp groups went into meltdown. And within minutes, the calls started coming for Starmer to explain himself or resign. But Starmer didn't resign. Instead, he tried to brazen it out. He called an emergency meeting of Labour MPs and attempted to spin the revelations. Tried to claim this was just normal diplomatic engagement, tried to suggest the documents were being misinterpreted, tried to attack the people who leaked them rather than address what they revealed. And that's when his own MPs turned on him, because they're not stupid. They can read, they can see what those documents say, and what they say is crystal clear. Starmer has been working systematically to align Britain with EU regulations and structures without telling anyone. He's been giving away the sovereignty that Brexit delivered. He's been reversing the people's vote in secret while lying about it in public. This is betrayal on a scale that's almost incomprehensible. The meeting descended into chaos. Labour MPs, who represent Leave voting constituencies, stood up and tore into Starmer. They told him he's destroyed their ability to face their voters, that he's made them complicit in deceiving the people they represent, that they trusted him when he said he respected the Brexit vote, and now they look like fools or liars. One MP reportedly told Starmer directly that he's finished, that there's no coming back from this, that the only question is whether he resigns now or gets forced out in humiliation. And that's when Starmer erupted. Witnesses say he lost his temper completely, started shouting at his own MPs, accused them of disloyalty, blamed the media for twisting his words, claimed he was being sabotaged by enemies within the party. It was a complete meltdown, the kind of loss of control that shows a man who knows he's beaten but can't accept it. The no confidence vote was triggered immediately after that meeting. The process that could end Starmer's premiership formally began. And the numbers started being counted. How many Labour MPs are willing to support removing their own Prime Minister? The answer is shocking even to those who expected rebellion. Sources are saying dozens of Labour MPs are prepared to vote against Starmer, maybe enough to actually remove him. Because this isn't about policy disagreements or political tactics. This is about fundamental honesty and respecting democracy. And on that question, Starmer has been found catastrophically wanting. He lied about the biggest issue in British politics. He betrayed the people who voted for Brexit, and now he's paying the price. The leaked documents are devastating in their detail. They show Starmer's government agreeing to regulatory alignment in areas that were supposed to be freed from EU control. They show commitments to follow European court rulings. They show Britain being tied back into EU structures piece by piece. And they show all of this happening in secret with no parliamentary approval or public consultation. This is how you reverse Brexit without actually calling it that. You don't announce you're rejoining the EU. You just quietly surrender sovereignty bit by bit until Britain is back under Brussels control in everything except name. And Starmer thought he could get away with it, thought the British people would never find out, thought he could lie his way through it if they did. He was catastrophically wrong. The fury in Leave voting areas is absolutely volcanic. These are communities that voted overwhelmingly for Brexit, that were told their vote would be respected, that believed politicians when they said Brexit means Brexit. And now they discover it was all lies, that while they were being told Brexit was done, their Prime Minister was secretly giving it away. The sense of betrayal is total. Phone lines to MPs are jammed with angry constituents demanding action. Town halls are being organised. Protests are being planned. And the message is clear: remove Starmer or face the consequences at the ballot box, because voters will not forgive this. Will not forget this. This is the kind of betrayal that ends political careers and destroy parties. Even Remain voting MPs are turning against Starmer, not because they oppose closer EU ties, but because of how he went about it. The lying, the secrecy, the contempt for democratic process. If Starmer wanted to change Brexit arrangements, he should have been honest about it, should have made the case publicly, should have sought a mandate, but he didn't do any of that. He chose deception instead, and that's unforgivable, regardless of your position on Brexit. Democracy requires honesty, requires transparency, requires respect for voters, and Starmer showed none of those things. He governed like a dictator who thinks he knows better than the people and doesn't need their approval. And now he's learning that in a democracy, that approach ends in disaster. The cabinet is in crisis. Multiple ministers are reportedly considering resignation. They're furious that Starmer kept this from them, that he made decisions without proper cabinet process, that he's exposed them all to accusations of complicity in betraying Brexit. Some are said to be actively working to push Starmer out, believing he's become a liability that will destroy Labour's electoral prospects. Because how do you win an election after this? How do you ask people to trust you when your leader was caught lying about the biggest political issue of the generation? The answer is you can't. And ambitious ministers who want political futures are distancing themselves from Starmer as fast as possible. The no confidence process is moving at unprecedented speed. Normally, these things take days or weeks to organise, but the anger is so intense and the pressure so enormous that it's all happening within hours. The threshold for triggering a vote has been met. The procedures are being followed. And soon Labour MPs will have to make a choice: stand with Starmer and share responsibility for his betrayal, or vote against him and try to save the party from complete destruction. The early indications suggest many will choose survival over loyalty because what Starmer did isn't defensible. You can't spin away secret negotiations to reverse Brexit. You can't explain away lying to Parliament and the public, and MPs know that if they support him through this, their own constituents will punish them for it. Starmer is reportedly locked in emergency meetings with his closest allies desperately trying to find a way to survive. They're calling MPs, begging for support. They're making promises about future positions and policies. They're threatening consequences for disloyalty. But it's not working, because the fundamental problem remains unchanged. Starmer betrayed Brexit and lied about it, and no amount of political manoeuvring can fix that. The only things that might save him are if the documents are somehow proven fake, which they're not, or if Labour MPs decide party unity is more important than honesty, which seems increasingly unlikely given the scale of anger from constituents. The opposition parties are having an absolute field day with this. They're calling for Starmer to resign immediately, demanding emergency debates in Parliament, filing formal complaints about the secret negotiations, and preparing to make this the central issue at every opportunity going forward. Because this is political gold for them, proof that Labour cannot be trusted, that Starmer is a liar who holds voters in contempt, that the party that claims to respect democracy was working secretly to overturn the biggest democratic vote in British history. This is ammunition that will be used against Labour for years. Every campaign, every election, every debate, the Brexit betrayal will be thrown in their faces relentlessly. Nigel Farage has naturally been vocal about this development. He's pointing out that he warned everyone this would happen, that he said repeatedly Starmer would try to reverse Brexit if given the chance, that the British people were told not to worry, and now they see they should have worried very much indeed. And he's demanding not just Starmer's removal, but a complete reset of Britain's relationship with the EU. A formal reaffirmation of Brexit, legal protections to prevent future governments from surrendering sovereignty without explicit public approval. This scandal has energised the entire Brexit movement again, reminded people why they voted leave in the first place, and created momentum for an even harder break from Brussels than before. The European Union's response has been notably quiet. They're clearly embarrassed that their secret negotiations have been exposed. They know this makes them look bad too. Makes it obvious they never really accepted Brexit and have been working to undermine it from day one. Brussels officials are refusing to comment on the leaked documents, claiming they don't discuss private diplomatic conversations, but their silence speaks volumes. If the documents were fake, they'd say so. If the meetings didn't happen, they'd deny it. Instead, they're staying quiet because they know it's all true. They know they were caught trying to claw back control over Britain, and they know this exposure has set back their efforts by years. The media coverage has been intense but predictable. Outlets that supported Remain are trying to minimise the story, claiming it's much ado about nothing, suggesting cooperation with the EU is sensible regardless of Brexit, attacking the motives of whoever leaked the documents. But outlets that supported Leave are going all in. Front page headlines about betrayal and treason, detailed analysis of exactly what was being negotiated, interviews with furious voters who feel deceived. The country is getting very different versions of this story depending on which media they consume. But the documents themselves are public now. Anyone can read them. Anyone can see what was being discussed. And when people read them for themselves, they reach the obvious conclusion. Starmer was betraying Brexit. The question now is whether Starmer can survive the no confidence vote. The math is brutal. He needs majority support from Labour MPs, and right now it's not clear he has it. If even a quarter of his MPs vote against him, it's over. His authority would be shattered even if he technically won, and sources suggest the rebellion might be even larger than that. MPs from Leave voting constituencies know they're finished if they support Starmer through this, that they have to vote against him to have any chance of keeping their seats. And that calculation is being made by dozens of Labour MPs right now. Do I go down with Starmer or do I try to save my own career? If Starmer loses the vote, the chaos will be unprecedented. Britain would have a Prime Minister who's been rejected by his own party, but technically still holds office. The Constitution isn't entirely clear on what happens next. Does he have to resign as PM? Does Labour get to choose a replacement? Does it trigger a general election? Different experts give different answers, and the uncertainty only adds to the crisis atmosphere. What is clear is that Starmer's political career would be effectively over. No Prime Minister has ever recovered from losing a confidence vote of their own MPs. It's a terminal diagnosis. The only question is how long the death takes. The British people are watching all of this unfold with a mixture of fury and vindication. Fury that their vote was betrayed, that they were lied to, that the democratic process was treated with such contempt. But also vindication that their suspicions were correct, that they were right, not to trust politicians who claim to respect Brexit, that their instinct to be sceptical was justified. And this combination of emotions is creating a political environment that's absolutely toxic for the establishment. Trust in government is already at historic lows. This scandal will drive it even lower, and the long-term consequences for British democracy could be severe. When people believe the system is rigged against them, when they think their votes don't matter because politicians will just ignore them, when they see their democratic choices being reversed in secret, they stop participating, stop believing, stop caring. And that's when democracy truly dies. Starmer's Brexit betrayal isn't just about European Union membership, it's about whether Britain is actually a democracy or just a facade, where the elite do whatever they want, regardless of what voters decide. And right now, the answer to that question looks very grim indeed. Section 3. The aftermath of the no confidence trigger is spreading beyond Westminster into every corner of British political life. Trade unions that traditionally support Labour are breaking their silence, and the statements coming out are absolutely scathing. Union leaders are demanding answers from Starmer about why he thought he could betray working class Leave voters who put their trust in Labour. These aren't Conservative organisations, these are Labour's traditional allies. And they're furious because their members voted for Brexit in huge numbers. They voted to take back control of British laws and borders. They voted to end freedom of movement that was suppressing their wages. And now they discover that the Labour Prime Minister was secretly trying to give it all back to Brussels. Union bosses are facing revolts from their own membership. Workers are threatening to cancel their union memberships if the unions continue supporting Starmer. And some unions are now openly calling for him to go. The business community response has been equally chaotic, but for completely different reasons. Businesses that wanted to remain in the EU are quietly pleased that Starmer was trying to maintain close alignment, but they're terrified to say so publicly because the political environment is so toxic right now. Meanwhile, businesses that supported Brexit and reorganised their entire operations around being outside EU regulations are absolutely livid. They spent millions adapting to post-Brexit rules. They changed supply chains, they hired compliance staff, they navigated all the complexity of the new system, and now they find out the government was planning to drag them back into EU regulatory control anyway. The betrayal isn't just political, it's economic. Companies feel like they were conned into spending money and effort on Brexit adaptation when the government was secretly planning to reverse it all along. The constitutional experts are having heated debates about what this crisis means for British democracy. Some are arguing that secret negotiations with foreign powers to surrender sovereignty without parliamentary approval might actually be illegal, that it could constitute a breach of ministerial code or even treason, depending on exactly what was agreed. Legal challenges are being prepared. Court cases are being discussed. Because if a Prime Minister can secretly give away national sovereignty without any democratic oversight, then what's the point of Parliament? What's the point of elections? The constitutional implications are staggering, and they go far beyond Brexit to fundamental questions about how Britain is governed and who actually has power. International reaction has been mixed and revealing. European leaders are staying mostly silent, but American conservative commentators have jumped all over this story. They're using it as an example of exactly what they warned about, that globalist politicians will always try to override the will of the people, that democracy is under assault from elites who think they know better, that national sovereignty is constantly under threat from international institutions. This is playing into larger global debates about populism versus establishment politics, and Starmer has become the poster child for everything that's wrong with the political class, a leader who campaigns on one thing, then secretly does the opposite, who treats voters with contempt, who values his international approval over democratic mandates. The damage to Britain's reputation is severe. Back in Westminster, the plotting has intensified to levels rarely seen in British politics. Multiple leadership campaigns are being quietly organised, even though Starmer hasn't officially fallen yet. Ambitious Labour MPs are positioning themselves as the person who can clean up this mess and restore trust. They're reaching out to colleagues, securing promises of support, preparing campaign teams. The assumption is that Starmer is finished one way or another. Either he loses the no confidence vote outright, or he wins it, but with such damaged authority that he has to resign anyway. And whoever replaces him will have the monumental task of rebuilding Labour credibility after the Brexit betrayal. Some potential candidates are already distancing themselves from Starmer, claiming they knew nothing about the secret negotiations, expressing shock and disappointment, promising they would never treat voters with such contempt. The knives are fully out now. The grassroots Labour membership is in complete turmoil. Local constituency parties are holding emergency meetings. Members are demanding explanations from their MPs about how this was allowed to happen. Some are calling for mass resignations. Others want a complete party leadership election. The anger isn't just from Leave supporters within Labour. Even Remain supporters are furious about the dishonesty and the political stupidity of thinking this could be kept secret. Party membership is reportedly dropping as people cancel their subscriptions in protest. The funding implications are serious. Labour depends on membership fees and small donations. If thousands of members quit in disgust, the party faces a financial crisis on top of the political one. The organisational infrastructure could start collapsing. Security services are reportedly investigating how the documents were leaked, who had access to them, who might have passed them to the press. There are suggestions that someone very senior within government deliberately sabotaged Starmer, that this was an inside job by people who wanted him gone and saw the Brexit negotiations as the perfect weapon. The leak was too well timed and too comprehensive to be accidental. Someone collected these documents systematically, waited for the right moment, then released them for maximum damage. The internal warfare within Labour is so vicious now that people are actively destroying their own leader. And if they succeed in bringing down Starmer, the paranoia and mistrust will poison the party for years. How can you govern when you can't trust your own cabinet? When documents from sensitive meetings end up in newspapers? When your colleagues are actively working to destroy you? The European Research Group of Conservative MPs is demanding emergency debates and investigations. They want Starmer hauled before Parliament to explain himself under oath. They want every detail of the secret negotiations disclosed. They want to know which other ministers knew about this. They want to know what exactly was promised to Brussels. And they want legal opinions on whether crimes were committed. The pressure for transparency is enormous, and every day that Starmer refuses to provide full disclosure makes him look more guilty, makes it seem like there's even more being hidden. The drip, drip, drip of revelations is killing him politically. Each new detail that emerges makes the scandal worse, makes the betrayal seem deeper, and there's apparently a lot more still to come.